Are we set to lose Levi Colwill to Bayern Munich? What's happening with Olise? And who are these new surprise youth signings we are in talks to try and sign? Today, my friends, we have so many big stories to discuss that I'm not going to waste time with the intro. You know what to do by now. You know where the like button is. You know where to share your thoughts and opinions to. And you know where the bell notification button is too, my friends. So sit back, relax, and let's dissect the latest news that dropped today. So let's start things with a small report involving the latest updates around Olise. Now, today, Romano was featured on the United stand and he gave us some very interesting updates involving our efforts to sign Olise, as he confirms that we are currently the favourites. We are ahead of Man Utd when it comes to signing him, and as I keep stressing, the reason why we have an advantage over Manchester United is due to sentimental advantages. Number 1, he came to our academy. 2, his brother is currently here, and number 3, he doesn't have to leave his life behind in London to make a move to Manchester. He is not that keen on relocating and would prefer to remain in the city, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're a United fan, I think you have to accept the fact that we currently are a lot more attractive compared to you. That's not an insult. That's where we currently are, because I've been trying to wrap my head around the idea from United fans suggesting that we're copying them. Like, we're trying to steal their flow. We're trying to go bar to bar with them. That's not making any sense. We know the fact that, number 1, that new ownership is literally inspired by our model and they're trying to copy us. And number 2, we tried to nab this guy last summer and he agreed to come. So all of a sudden we become unattractive now. Like, it doesn't really add up. It doesn't make any sense, but I get it. You know, we've all been there as football fans, right? You have to try and find an outlet for that hurt. But as I keep saying, I'm feeling pretty confident about our efforts and our chances to get this deal over the lines. I'm feeling very, very confident, in fact, that I've been spending a few days now working on a video involving Olise, and I'm hoping that this video gets accepted by YouTube, because, you know, these videos take a lot of time, and when they get blocked, it's like, it gets me a bit depressed sometimes. I mean, you guys would have seen my last video involving Julian Alvarez. That got blocked. That's a real shame. So I think this summer I'm going to be a bit smarter in terms of how I edit and what I look to do to make sure that I'm not wasting my time, right? So that's the Olise update out the way. How are you guys feeling about this? Now, before I discuss the big reports on Levi Colwill and Bayern Munich, I want to spend some time tackling these reports. There is another big story we can't forget about, and that is we are now getting closer to capturing Sporting Recife 17-year-old right back in Pedro, Lima. Reports state that we have reached personal agreements now with the player to get this move finalized, and as the Sporting Recife manager says, he says there has been progress in the negotiations, but it is not over yet. The salary part is settled, but there are still some clauses to be defined in the contracts, some bonuses too. Now, we've improved our initial bid of around 8 million euros to now 10 million euros plus add-ons, which is a lot closer to the initial 12 million euro valuation Sporting Recife were hoping to get for their player. So it seems like at the moment he is set to sign for us. This is big news, but for this part of the video, I want to give you guys a bit of context understanding behind reports suggesting that maybe Strasbourg may be completing this move and we may not be signing him whatsoever. So let's try and understand how this could be the case, because we are now signing Pedro Lima from the 2nd division in Brazil. Immediately, we should remember we've done business in that division before when we first signed Andre Santos from Vasco da Gama. Now, one of the issues that we are currently facing now with Pedro Lima is that he does not currently qualify for a UK work permit because he hasn't got the 15-point quota that you need to get that work permit in this country. Now, Andre Santos was 1 point off from securing a work permit, which would allow him to, of course, be registered by us and included in our squad. But Pedro Lima is a completely different kettle of fish, because Andre Santos not only was a regular for Vasco da Gama, not only did he win a cap for Brazil, not only was he a captain of Brazil's youth nations, but he also played in the Sudamericana, which is like the equivalent of the Europa League in Europe, and that ranks quite high. I think it ranks in band 3 when it comes to work permit points that get allocated. So there's a reason why he had 14 points by the time he was 17 years old. But for Pedro Lima, he has none of these things other than the fact that he's played quite a few substantial minutes with Sporting Recife. So technically, Strasbourg could complete the move because Strasbourg are part of our club network. In the future, when he does qualify for a work permit, we could technically then purchase him from within our network. So let's see what happens, because if he goes to Strasbourg, which he's definitely doing, whether that's Strasbourg signing him or us loaning him out to Strasbourg, he needs to get that work permit. And in a best case scenario, that could take 1.5 to 2 years minimum, and that requires Pedro Lima to play at least 70% of his games for Strasbourg. So it's not that simple, even though he's a great, talented player. To give you guys even more context, currently there's a new rule change where every season clubs are only allowed to sign up to 6 under-21 players that don't have UK passports. And as you can see with the business we've done over the past few seasons, we signed quite a lot of under-21 talents. Look at players like David Washington. Let's not forget the talented Senegalese mid we signed in Papa Do the Song, players like Tujan Richards, Lanina, etc, etc. You know, we are signing talents from across the globe, so ideally, wouldn't we want to keep our quotas open, especially when players like Kendry Paez and Esteval William are players we are hoping will come straight into our team. Now, we don't have to worry about their work permits, but with all the business we're getting done, there's less and less positions to sign for talented players across the world under 21. So, could it make sense for Strasbourg to just sign them instead of us because they're within our network? That could be the way things go. I think an example we're about to see is Man City signing Savio from Troyes in France, even though he was loaned out to one of the other networks in Girona last season. And I think that's the type of model we're looking to recreate, right? So yeah, it's very interesting to see what happens, but I think a signing like this, especially for the talent and potential this kid has, isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. That's the second story out the way. And now for the big story, we discussed reports coming out from Florian Plettenberg that Bayern Munich are seriously considering making a move for Levi Colwill in case their efforts for Jonathan Tah falls through, as he is seen as the main alternative for him in case that happens. But Bayern like him because he's left-footed, and they're liking that left-footed profile in their defense. Let's see what happens, right? Because there has been more updates that's come out, hence why I've kind of stalled with releasing this video to get the most up-to-date information surrounding the story, because as we now know, Jonathan Tah is close now to agreeing a move to sign for Bayern Munich with a contract that expires in 2029. Tah said that if he's leaving Leverkusen, he's only going to Bayern Munich. And to be honest, when he's available on the free, I don't see how this deal falls through unless he fails a medical. But does this necessarily mean that Bayern Munich have given up on Levi Colwill? I don't think so, because Plettenberg even said in his latest tweet and report that Bayern are also open to making another move for the centre-back. And I'm not surprised by this. Unofficially, I've been covering so much Bayern Munich news because of so many links towards them over the season. And we can't forget that right now, they're trying to tie down Alphonso Davies to a new contract. Originally, Davies wanted 20 million euros per year. Bayern have come in with an improved offer of 30 million euros, but nothing has been finalized just yet. Bayern may need to up their offer a little bit to keep the player, because I'd imagine that Vincent Kompany wants to work with Alphonso Davies in his system. That's a no-brainer, right? So Bayern needs to free up some funds, and it seems like the high-profile positions which they've overspent in recent seasons is in defense. Now, I spoke about Upamecano, with them being possibly open to selling him if they get strong interest from the player. But we're also learning today that De Ligt could be an option they look to sell, because he's currently earning around 50 million euros a year, which is a ton of money. They give out massive contracts in Bavaria. So ideally, I'm seeing it as a one-in, one-out policy. Bayern may feel confident that they can receive big money to release one of their centre-backs because they are stacked with right-footed defenders who are all kind of the same similar profile. But Levi Colwill would be a completely different kettle of fish and be a player that actually suits their system long term, and most importantly, it reunites the two best friends of Musiala and Levi Colwill. I was always kind of hoping that Musiala would be coming our way, but because we missed out on Champions League football last season, it killed any potential for anything Jamal Musiala. So I don't know, is this story stupid? Is this story a bit crazy? Is it all these things all at once? Because Bayern will know Levi Colwill signed a contract that takes his expiry date to 2029. We have all the leverage, we have all the power, we have all the control. That doesn't necessarily mean that we could be like, give us 150 million, because it has to be based on market rates and valuations as well, right? So many players have signed long-term deals, but look at your Broders, look at your Trevor Chalobahs, irrespective of their minutes or whatever, or how they performed, we're asking for like 20 million or 30 million a piece for them, which isn't big money. So we couldn't ask for stupid funds if we did consider possibly selling Levi Colwill. For my closing points, I'm going to use my brain on this one. I'm not going to be getting too reactionary or thinking of horror stories, or maybe the easy route. Some of you guys may be thinking like, you know, Nini's going to be crying at the ownership for not believing in Cobham. I mean, there's nothing new to say about that stuff, but using my brain, I feel like it would be very unlikely for the club to want to release a Levi Colwill, especially because I think even though they see the academy as fodder to help us buy new players, I do think they're serious about keeping the elite level talents that come through the academy and keeping that pathway open. Hence why there were long-term deals given to Reece James and Levi Colwill. It seems like if you're only on that type of level, that high up in the estimations, you will have a place in the team. But using my brain, I'd be incredibly surprised if we ever even thought about entertaining a sale for Levi Colwill, especially when, you know, last season wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible either. It would only be terrible if after his loan spell at Brighton, he had like ridiculously high expectations that this guy was set to take over as the new defender in the Premier League. But he has played in different positions with Pochettino, and Cole himself saying that he's been open to learning how to play as a left back, because as he gets older, as he develops, as he improves, this is how he's adding new ability and understanding to his game, right? That will serve him in the long term. And I think playing as a left back, in hindsight now, I can see how it benefits the player personally. When he started playing at centre back, he was looking good, but then injuries came because, of course, I think he broke his toe near the end of the season. But I thought it was a pretty promising season. I thought his game away from home against Man City was top. And I think we can't forget that, you know, he's only just turned 21 years old. I mean, this guy is still very, very young. And we have done big things to even keep the player here, as we can't forget that we blocked him from being permanently sold to Brighton in exchange for Cucurella, even though Tuchel at the time would have been open to a move like this. So I think there is still massive belief around Levi Colwill. I think Bayern Munich are entitled to ask for one of our players. It happens in football, conversations happen all the time. But then maybe, you know, why do Bayern feel maybe encouraged? Is there no smoke without fire? Maybe, but I'm not gonna lie, I feel like if that's the case, yeah, then it's the smallest fire. And I don't even think it's a fire, to be honest with you. I think it's someone sparking a zoo, because I think we'd be absolutely high to even consider letting this kid go. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the Levi Colwill Bayern Munich story. And now let's end things with a pretty interesting, surprising report. And we're getting news from a Croatian journalist suggesting that we've been holding talks with Dinamo Zagreb over their talented number 10 and Martin Baturina. Now, this guy is a talent, and I first heard about him last year, in fact, when reports actually came out suggesting that we were following the player. Now, this report comes from a journalist on Twitter, and he mentions the fact that we've had scouts follow his game very closely, and every single time he's coming back with glowing references, and he's being seen at a very, very high level. And I guess it's no surprise, because if you're a football nerd, which you probably are if you're watching me, if you're playing FM, if you're doing all these things, some of these names might not be new to you, because Baturina is seen as the next Luka Modric, and he's playing phenomenally well for Dinamo Zagreb, and he's spurred them on to helping Dinamo Zagreb lift the league in Croatia. So who is this guy? Why are we looking at him? Well, he is someone that plays as a 10, but can also play that advanced role in a midfield 3, right? And I have to say this guy is like a proper playmaker. He's got the qualities pattern. Of course, things like vision, that ability to disguise the pass, and most importantly, the execution. You know, the weight of ball, the weight of pass, that feeling. Yeah, this guy is a great player that can unlock the most settled defenses. Great composure on the ball. I keep stressing weight of pass, he can do that. But most importantly, this guy has a rocket of a left foot and a right foot, and he will test the keeper from range. He isn't afraid to do that. And I think sometimes you need players that can do that, right? You don't see many players these days who have the technical capacity with, taking shots from outside the box. So this guy is a talent. He's already won 3 caps for Croatia. He's a very good player. But I think to myself, okay, if we're potentially holding talks to make a move, what is the long-term play and what is the long-term plan? Because his current market valuation alone is like 20 million euros. And his contract expires in 2028. And in Croatia, they're not selling players for cheap. I think Chelle, like another talented defender, he went to Ajax for like over 20 million euros. So for someone like Baturina, I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted like 30, 35 million. And I think to myself, a fee that high, would he be coming into our squad to be assessed? Which I don't know. I think maybe not. It seems like if you're holding talks for him, you're holding talks so he goes to Strasbourg. Maybe we're hoping to be more ambitious in terms of how we invest in Strasbourg for next season. That could be the case, because I think ideally for us, if Strasbourg at least are able to become like a European team in like the Conference League, that could be a massive win for us in terms of getting players to get work permits a lot faster and a lot quicker. So that works in our long-term favor, as we're going to continue to scour talents across South America, right? And I think maybe Baturina, go into a league, if he can test himself there, show his qualities, maybe he's someone that gets assessed in our squad in the next 1 to 2 years. And if not, could it be someone that gets flipped on for big money, similar to what we are currently trying to do with Amari Hutchinson? So I feel like, because I'm constantly seeing reports and links to players being signed, it's making me try and think outside the box a bit. Do I necessarily agree on a personal level about the big clubs acting like conglomerates, just hoovering up every type of talent that would normally go to like the smaller clubs just to like save a pretty penny in the future? I'm not too sure. I don't think it's necessarily right for the game, in my opinion. But again, I'm not here to give my opinion. I'm here to understand this business and why it's going down. But I think it's a pretty interesting report, because Baturina has like a big rep back in Croatia, and yeah, let's see what happens. But I do think it's pretty remarkable that a nation that small, I think it's like a 3 million population size in Croatia, is regularly and constantly just producing some of the best players in Europe. I think Gvardiol is like an amazing representation of all things Croatian football. I think the guy's a phenomenal football player. The way he ended last season absolutely kind of blew my mind a little bit and made me actually regret thinking, crap, maybe we should have signed Gvardiol, because if you had him and Colwill together down the left-hand side, I think you're set for the next like 15 years, right? But anyway, my friends, that's all the latest reports today. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Stay tuned on BlueLionsTV for more content. And on that note, I guess I'll see you guys all tomorrow again. Have a good night. Cool.